If you are not already subscribed to this channel, do it now, because what I am about to explain next is not being discussed anywhere in mainstream coverage. And if you want analysis that connects the technical details to the strategic reality, this is where you get it. Demand 5. Recognition of Iran's right to maintain its missile arsenal. This is the demand that makes all the others permanent, because once America formally accepts that Iran can keep 3,000 plus ballistic missiles, 5,000 plus drones, and an integrated air defense network that includes Russian S-400 systems, the threat does not go away. It becomes normalized. Every future negotiation starts from the baseline that Iran has the capability to strike any target in the Middle East within minutes. And that capability gives Iran veto power over regional security decisions. Saudi Arabia wants to normalize relations with Israel. Iran can threaten missile strikes on Saudi oil infrastructure. UAE wants to host expanded American forces. Iran can make that hosting agreement prohibitively expensive by forcing constant defensive expenditures. The missile arsenal that Iran is asking America to accept is not just a military capability, it is a permanent coercive tool that reshapes regional politics. Now let me explain what Iran is offering in return, because this is where the asymmetry becomes obvious. Iran offers to stop attacking Israel with ballistic missiles. Notice the specific wording. Ballistic missiles, not drones, not cruise missiles, not proxy rocket attacks from Hezbollah in Lebanon or militias in Syria, just the specific category of weapons that has been most visible in international media coverage. Iran can comply with this term and continue pressure on Israel through every other means available. The offer to withdraw support for proxy attacks on American forces in Iraq and Syria is equally conditional. Iran supports these groups primarily through training, funding, and equipment supply. Those relationships do not disappear because Iran signs a document saying they will. The infrastructure remains, the networks remain, and the moment Iran decides the agreement is no longer serving its interests, support resumes. The commitment to resume nuclear negotiations is perhaps the most meaningless term in the entire offer. Iran has been in nuclear negotiations on and off for 20 years. They have signed agreements, violated agreements, renegotiated agreements, and walked away from agreements. The pattern is consistent. Iran uses negotiations to buy time, reduce pressure, and advance its program under reduced scrutiny. A commitment to resume negotiations is not a commitment to limit enrichment. It is an agreement to schedule more meetings, while enrichment facilities at Natanz and Fordo continue operating uninterrupted. Here is the question. American decision makers are asking in classified briefings right now, what happens if we accept? The immediate benefit is obvious. Attacks stop, casualties stop. The daily expenditure of $10 million in interceptor missiles stops. Allies in the Gulf stop pressuring Washington to end a war that is threatening their economic survival. But the second-order effects are catastrophic. American withdrawal from forward bases means losing the ability to respond quickly to future crises. Iranian hegemony over the Gulf means oil prices become subject to Iranian political decisions. And accepting Iran's missile arsenal as permanent means every future confrontation starts with Iran holding a gun to the head of global energy markets. What happens if we reject? The war continues. Iranian missiles keep falling on Tel Aviv. American ships keep burning through defensive stockpiles. The cost equation that already favors Iran becomes even more lopsided. And within months, Gulf allies start making their own separate deals with Iran because they conclude that American protection is not worth the price. The result is the same as acceptance. American influence collapses. The only difference is whether it happens through diplomatic concession or strategic exhaustion. Here is what is not being reported in mainstream coverage. The 96-hour deadline Iran imposed is not arbitrary. It is calculated to prevent the exact kind of coordination that might produce a viable counteroffer. 96 hours is enough time for Washington to brief allies and convene emergency policy meetings. It is not enough time to deploy additional defensive systems to the Gulf. It is not enough time to arrange alternative security guarantees for Saudi Arabia and UAE. It is not enough time to restructure the entire regional security architecture. Iran designed the timeline specifically to force a binary choice under time pressure with incomplete options. And here is the technical detail that explains why Iran feels confident making this offer now. Their missile production capacity has not been significantly degraded, despite 2 weeks of American and Israeli strikes. Intelligence assessments indicate Iran is still producing 40 to 50 ballistic missiles per month. Their drone production is even higher, with estimates suggesting 200 plus units monthly. Meanwhile, American production of Arrow interceptors is approximately 12 per year. Standard Missile 3 production is around 125 per year, shared across all American and Allied needs globally. The manufacturing advantage belongs to the attacker, and Iran knows it. Let me tell you what comes next. Because the 96-hour deadline expires in 48 hours, and no public response from Washington has been issued. That silence is itself a response. It suggests internal debate about whether any version of these terms is acceptable. It suggests allies are being consulted about what they can tolerate. And it suggests that American officials understand accepting these terms is a strategic defeat, but rejecting them leads to a war of attrition that America may not win. The most likely outcome is a counteroffer. America proposes partial withdrawal, partial sanctions relief, and continued limits on Iranian missile development in exchange for a ceasefire. Iran rejects it because Iran's opening position was designed to be rejected. The goal is not agreement. The goal is to demonstrate that America has no good options. When Iran walks away from the negotiating table, they gained the propaganda victory of claiming they offered peace, and America refused. They resume attacks with renewed justification, and every missile that falls after this point, Iran can say they gave America a chance to stop it. This is coercive diplomacy optimized for maximum strategic advantage. The offer is structured so that acceptance is unacceptable, and rejection is exactly what Iran wants. Both outcomes weaken America. Both outcomes strengthen Iran. The only variable is which path causes more damage to American credibility. Share this video, because the mainstream media is reporting that Iran made a peace offer and framing it as a potential breakthrough. They are not explaining what the terms actually require. They are not showing you the mathematics of why the timeline forces impossible choices. They are not connecting Iran's missile production rates to America's interceptor depletion rates. They are not telling you that this offer is a trap where both doors lead to strategic defeat. The story they are telling is hopeful. The story I just told you is what the classified assessments say. Both stories are true. Only one prepares you for what happens when the deadline expires and the missiles start falling again. Iran just offered a deal. What they are really asking for is American acknowledgement that the regional balance of power has already shifted, and Washington just has not admitted it yet. Subscribe now if you want to understand what happens next. Because the next 48 hours will define whether America remains a Middle Eastern power or becomes a historical footnote in the region. And I will be here explaining exactly what the technical details mean strategically while everyone else is reading Pentagon press releases. March 11th, 2026. 3 days ago, Iranian representatives approached intermediaries in Oman with a message for Washington, not through official diplomatic channels, through the kind of back-channel networks that only activate when governments need plausible deniability. The message was simple. Iran is prepared to end hostilities. They have terms. America has 96 hours to respond. The mainstream media is calling this a potential breakthrough, a chance for de-escalation, a diplomatic off-ramp after 2 weeks of escalating violence. Let me tell you what Iran is really asking for. Because understanding these terms is understanding that this is not a peace offer. This is a strategic repositioning disguised as diplomacy, and the deadline is not an invitation to negotiate. It is a countdown to something far more dangerous. Here is what Iran put on the table. 5 specific demands delivered simultaneously to American officials through Omani intermediaries. First, immediate cessation of all American and Israeli strikes on Iranian territory. Not a gradual drawdown. Immediate. All ongoing operations stop within 24 hours. Second, withdrawal of American carrier battle groups to positions at least 1,000 kilometers from Iranian territorial waters. That puts them outside the Persian Gulf entirely, beyond the Arabian Sea, effectively removing American naval power projection from the region. Third, closure of forward operating bases in Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, and Qatar within 90 days. Not reduction of forces. Closure. American military presence in the Gulf ends. Fourth, lifting of all economic sanctions imposed on Iran since 2018. Oil exports resume without restriction. Frozen assets released. Banking channels reopened. And fifth, a formal recognition of Iran's right to maintain its current missile arsenal and air defense capabilities without external interference. Translation: America accepts that Iran can threaten any target in the Middle East permanently. In exchange, Iran offers the following: a halt to all ballistic missile attacks on Israeli territory, withdrawal of support for proxy attacks on American forces in Iraq and Syria, and a commitment to resume negotiations on limiting its nuclear enrichment program. Notice what is not included in Iran's offer. There is no promise to dismantle existing missile capabilities, no commitment to reduce its drone production, no withdrawal of forces from Syria or Iraq, no cessation of support to Hezbollah in Lebanon or Houthis in Yemen. Iran is offering to stop attacking in exchange for America abandoning its entire regional military posture and accepting Iran as the dominant power in the Middle East. Let me explain why this offer exists now. Because timing in diplomacy is everything. 3 weeks ago, this offer would not have been made. Iran was still testing whether American defenses could withstand sustained missile campaigns. The answer is now clear. They can, but at unsustainable cost. Israel has expended an estimated $4 billion in interceptor missiles in 2 weeks. American ships have burned through defensive stockpiles that will take 18 months to replace. Manufacturing capacity for Arrow, David's Sling, and Standard missile interceptors is finite. Iran knows the depletion rates because they are tracking every interception, every failed engagement, every repositioning of American naval assets away from the threat envelope. The mathematics favor the attacker, and Iran is now offering peace from a position where they have demonstrated they can continue the war longer than America can afford to defend against it. But here is what makes this offer strategically brilliant. It forces America to choose between three options, all of which advance Iranian interests. Option 1, accept the terms. American forces withdraw from the Gulf. Sanctions lift. Iran consolidates regional hegemony without firing another shot. The 70-year American security architecture in the Middle East ends. Saudi Arabia, UAE, and other Gulf states become Iranian client states within 5 years because the security guarantor that kept them independent is gone. Option 2, reject the terms and continue the war. Iran resumes missile attacks. American interceptor stockpiles deplete further. The cost equation becomes even more unsustainable. Allies start questioning whether American protection is worth the economic devastation of having their oil infrastructure under permanent threat. Within months, Gulf states begin making separate accommodations with Iran, regardless of American preferences. Option 3, accept some terms but not others, attempting to negotiate a middle ground. Iran walks away from talks, claims America is not serious about peace, and resumes attacks with the added propaganda victory of being able to say they offered diplomacy and America refused. Every option ends with America's regional influence diminished. The only variable is how fast it happens and how much it costs. Let me walk through the specific implications of each Iranian demand because this is where the strategic trap becomes clear. Demand 1, cessation of strikes on Iranian territory. This sounds reasonable until you understand what American and Israeli strikes are targeting. Not military bases, not missile launchers, command and control nodes, the facilities that coordinate Iran's integrated air defense network, the production sites where ballistic missiles are manufactured, the storage depots where chemical precursors are kept, the intelligence fusion centers that process targeting data from Russian satellites. Stopping these strikes means Iran can rebuild, rearm, and reinforce everything that has been degraded over the past 2 weeks. Within 6 months, Iran's military capability returns to pre-war levels. Within a year, it exceeds it because they have learned from every engagement which systems work and which need upgrading. Demand 2, carrier battle groups withdrawn beyond 1,000 kilometers. Let me show you what that distance means operationally. The USS Abraham Lincoln is currently operating approximately 600 kilometers from the Iranian coast. Its FA-18 Super Hornets have a combat radius of roughly 700 kilometers with external fuel tanks that gives them the ability to strike targets deep inside Iran and return to the carrier. Move the carrier to 1,000 kilometers out, and the math changes. The aircraft can still reach Iranian territory, but with reduced loiter time, reduced payload capacity, and no margin for combat maneuvering. Effectively, American carrier-based air power loses the ability to conduct sustained operations over Iran. The carriers become defensive platforms instead of offensive ones. And here is the detail that matters most. Those carriers are not just launching aircraft. They are coordinating the entire regional air defense picture. AWACS aircraft operating from the carriers provide early warning and battle management for missile defense systems across the Gulf. Move the carriers out of range, and that coordination degrades. The integrated air defense network that protects Saudi oil fields, Emirati ports, and American bases becomes less effective. Iran knows this. They are not asking America to leave the region entirely. They're asking America to move just far enough away that the defensive umbrella becomes full of holes. Demand 3, closure of forward operating bases. This is the demand that ends American presence in the Gulf permanently. Because once you close Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, once you shut down the operations center at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, once you withdraw from Ali Al Salem in Kuwait, you do not get them back. The infrastructure can be mothballed. The runways remain. But the political will to allow Americans to return evaporates the moment the last transport aircraft departs. Gulf monarchies that spent 50 years balancing between American alliance and Iranian pressure will conclude that the balance no longer exists. Iran is the neighbor that cannot be moved. America is the distant partner that just proved it can be pushed out. Future Gulf policy will be written in Tehran, not Washington. Demand 4, lifting of sanctions. Let me give you the numbers that explain what this demand is worth to Iran. Current sanctions have reduced Iranian oil exports from 2.5 million barrels per day in 2018 to approximately 1.4 million barrels per day today. That is a loss of roughly 1.1 million barrels per day. At current oil prices of around $85 per barrel, that is $93 million per day in lost revenue. Over a year, that is $34 billion. Iran has $120 billion in frozen assets sitting in banks across Asia and Europe that they cannot access because of sanctions. Lifting restrictions means that money flows immediately. Iranian oil production can ramp up to maximum capacity within 6 months, adding another $50 billion per year to government revenues. That money does not go to rebuilding schools or hospitals. It goes to exactly what funded this war: missile production, drone manufacturing, proxy force support, and nuclear program advancement.